Colin Kaepernick went from football player to activist, essentially becoming a household name. He has truly become one of the most controversial figures in sports these days, inspiring people to burn their own shoes and refuse to watch their favorite NFL games. Kaepernick is someone who has used his platform to make his voice heard. While he may not be playing for a team right now, he's still making some serious cash. Stick around with us until the end to find out how he just might find his way back into the NFL. Now this is how Colin Kaepernick spends his millions. Let's answer the biggest question first. How much is Colin Kaepernick worth these days? While he was playing in the NFL, he was making about $7 million each year. His deal with the 49ers back in 2014 was worth $126 million. His Nike deal certainly brought in a few more million for him. These days, it's reported that he's worth about $20 million. That will likely change in the next year as we watch Kaepernick make his next moves. What is he spending these millions on? Find out now. Let's start off with something a little quirky. After Colin Kaepernick started taking a knee during the 2016 pregame season, he was already catching national attention. Once the actual NFL season started, all eyes and cameras were on Kaepernick. Between people becoming angered by his actions and those inspired to do more, the 49ers player had to do something to protect his image, literally. In 2018, he actually trademarked himself. Well, he at least put in the application. Specifically, he trademarked his face and hair. Granted, you would think he would have taken advantage of this in 2016 since people were going nuts making posters, shirts, and other things with his image. These days, it looks like Kaepernick is looking at himself as more of a brand than a football player. Only time will tell if the actual trademark ends up going through. You still have to pay all the fees, but being an activist means that he may inspire images for political rallies and other related events. The trademark is actually a smart move and may even get him some extra income. When he wasn't playing football or traveling, Kaepernick was hanging out in his home in San Jose. As most of the world knows, the Bay Area is one of the most expensive places to live in the world. People who make seven figures even have a hard time making ends meet with the crazy expensive rent and cost of living. In December 2016, it was revealed that Kaepernick put his San Jose home up for sale and bought a condo in New York City for $3.21 million. For most Americans, a price tag this hefty can be intense, especially if you're not among the 1%, aka a rich person. New York City is pretty expensive to live in if you don't want to deal with roommates, but Kaepernick makes enough cash that he can make purchases like these without a blink. Technically, one can argue that buying a condo for $3.21 million is on the less expensive side, since other celebrities have been known to spend even tens of millions on a penthouse or buying multiple floors. But it is still a huge amount of money. Another thing that people notice about Colin Kaepernick is that he has quite the ink collection on his body. Given that tattoos are not cheap endeavors, well, at least if you want the job done right, you know that he put down some serious money. Tattoo prices will also vary depending on where you go to get the job done. If you go someplace like New York City, you're bound to spend about $100 on something really small. But if you go to a decent shop in the middle of the Midwest in the USA, then that $100 would stretch to a bigger piece. One of the tattoos he got in 2014 took about 27 hours to finish, which means that he could have spent around $2,700 if not more. He also saw celebrity tattoo artist Carlos Torres. Most tattoo artists will charge an average of $100 per hour. Sometimes more depending on the design. Ironically, the tattoo he got was a reminder that money is evil and can easily corrupt people. The tattoo was expensive, but he had just signed his $126 million contract with the 49ers. We guess maybe he was trying to give himself a daily reminder to not let it all go to his head. When Kaepernick was just 10 years old, his family got him a pet African spurred tortoise. At the time, the tortoise was small, but as we all know, what starts off as small eventually becomes massive. Kaepernick held on to his shelled friend, and he then took him with him when he moved out of the house and started playing professional football. The tortoise is named Sammy, and it has grown to weigh over 115 pounds. That's quite a large tortoise. Sammy still lives with Kaepernick. When Sammy was in the San Jose home, he spent his days roaming around the backyard. According to Kaepernick, Sammy basically ate the backyard. Most pet owners know that taking care of an animal is quite expensive. Food, vet visits, and overall care of an animal like this can cost quite a bit of money. You could almost put Sammy in the category of being an exotic pet since he's grown so big. We haven't heard about Sammy in a while, so we hope he's doing okay. We have to wonder if Kaepernick took him to New York City with him. If so, that tortoise is living a better life than most of us. If there was a celebrity athlete that wasn't into cars, would they even be doing it right? It seems that people are obsessed with what kind of cars celebrities and athletes are driving. Maybe it's because we can live vicariously through them, or we can get the car ourselves and feel like a star. Either way, car purchases are extremely popular on gossip sites and mainstream news. Even before Kaepernick was taking a knee, he was getting attention for his endorsement from Jaguar. This meant that he was in possession of a Jaguar that was worth $92,000. Granted, he probably got it on loan from his endorser, but even so, Kaepernick has had his share of photo shoots around cars, so it's only natural to assume that he has an expensive taste for vehicles. And when he's not driving or posing in front of a Jaguar, Kaepernick also has quite the affinity for shoes. He loves shoes. We're talking about a devotion that would make Carrie Bradshaw look like an amateur. In 2015, it was revealed that Kaepernick had so many shoes he had to use his garage for storage. The walls of his garage were almost literally covered in shoes, looking almost identical to a museum. From the looks of the photo he posted on his Instagram, he has almost every pair of Nike shoe that has ever been made. That certainly explains why he has such a great relationship with Nike. Who knows, this might have even paved the way for him to get that deal with the infamous Just Do It company. He ended up donating his extensive collection to the homeless in San Francisco. Speaking of donations, Kaepernick is trying to make the world a better place with his money. After his last season with the 49ers, he pledged to donate $1 million of his money to help the community. As an example of him fulfilling his pledge, he donated 50 custom suits to the nonprofit organization 100 Suits for 100 Men. Custom suits can be incredibly expensive, so the donation alone was significant. The purpose of the organization is to help recently freed prisoners get back on their feet with tools to land a good job. This is so they can avoid being put back into the prison system from reoffending, which is something that happens often to parolees. Kaepernick also donated $50,000 of his own money to Meals on Wheels, as well as another $50,000 to Love Army for Somalia, ensuring they can fly a plane of food and water to the country affected by famine. It's amazing how much someone can do in their free time while they wait for football teams to call and make an offer. If you think the donations stop there, think again. There are many more organizations that Kaepernick has donated to. On January 31, 2018, Kaepernick finished his $1 million pledge, ironically while people were arguing about his Nike appearance and other political standings. Or should we say, kneelings. He donated a considerable amount of money to different organizations dedicated to helping the African American community, at-risk youth, as well as groups who are working on improving relations between the police and the community. The list doesn't stop there. He has also donated money to help veterans in need. Basically, Kaepernick isn't just making waves on TV by kneeling during the national anthem. He's making good on his promises and his political stance to make his community a better place. He spent money without promise of making more money. He even inspired other celebrities like Usher to make their own donations. You could say this is making waves in Hollywood's wallets. While it may seem that Kaepernick is in a good place right now, he is also struggling to get a job. After becoming a free agent, he hasn't gotten any offers from any new teams. Some might say it's because he isn't good at football, but before he started kneeling, Kaepernick was known to be a really excellent football player. You don't give a $126 million contract to a player who's good at keeping the benches warm. He certainly had his own value and skills that were covered by other teams. This is why Kaepernick decided to file a lawsuit against the NFL. Why? Well, he believes that the NFL blackballed him, and they are preventing him from getting a new job on purpose. This would be politically motivated since the NFL did get a decent amount of backlash for his kneeling. As mentioned before, since Trump tweeted that the NFL should fire players for kneeling, his supporters followed suit. Taking a giant like the NFL to court is not cheap, and Kaepernick is paying thousands of dollars for a lawyer. Stressing about court and lawsuits definitely warrants a vacation every now and then. Kaepernick got media attention when he decided to visit Ghana in Africa. He traced his ancestral roots to Ghana and decided that he needed to make a trip home. He wanted to see the world through the eyes of his ancestors and get a different perspective on life. Not only did he visit Africa, but he also made time to do some sightseeing in Egypt with fellow 49ers player Marquise Goodwin. They wore traditional clothing and went on guided tours of Edfu and Aswan. Between the travel, the traditional clothing, the cost of the guided tours, and other travel incidentals, Kaepernick spent significant money for this trip. While Kaepernick is still waiting on his opportunity to play football again, he isn't one to snub a business venture. When the Carolina Panthers were up for sale, there were quite a few people interested in buying the team, including Colin Kaepernick. But since the Panthers were recently sold for over $2.2 billion by David Tepper, we know Colin doesn't have that kind of money. But he was going to go in on the purchase with Diddy. Yes, you heard that right. Diddy actually joked about buying the Panthers and then replacing Cam Newton with Colin Kaepernick. Who knows how he will get back into football, but he doesn't seem to be opposed to team ownership. As you can see, Colin Kaepernick is using his money not only on himself, but he's also trying to make the world a better place. He is fulfilling his promises and giving his money to various organizations. Of course, he also has to take care of himself, which explains the car, new house, tattoos, and more. If he was all work and no play, he wouldn't have the energy to be the activist that he has become. Will Kaepernick ever play football again? Time can only answer that question. Given the turbulent political climate that the world is in today, some teams might feel like it's too risky to sign him. But things can always change. What do you think of Colin Kaepernick's spending habits? What would you do if you had his kind of paycheck? Sound off in the comments and make your voice heard. Before you go find your own fortune, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.